Dare I say, Frieren might have the best magic exam in anime, or at least it's attempting to build so. We're still pretty early into it, so yeah, it's early to say for sure, but I think the idea of what they're going for was something that's so realistic and brutal, but makes sense for a magical world. If you're gonna take a first class exam to be the best of the best in this world for spellcasters, you can't have safety nets, because most stories, when they have something that, yeah, it could hurt you, and yeah, it could kill you, but don't worry, we say there's no hand-holding, but if you're about to get shot in the face, someone intervenes and saves your life. They don't do that here. People are just dead. People just die, because, as they say, if you would die from a bird attack, as mean as that bird looks, you're not fit to be a first rank. And there's no hand-holding, because as soon as someone gets saved in an exam like this, then word would spread that you don't really have to fear your life. You can take risks because the teachers, the other first class, S-class ranks, whatever, are gonna save you. Not here. And such a simple idea for catching a bird that moves at the sound of, I don't know, like supersonic speeds? It's hard to say. This thing is faster than Sonic the Hedgehog. The idea that not only can you steal from other people's groups, but just the way you go about kind of like pushing these birds into one location so Frieren's group can do it, and then ultimately end with a bunch of battles happening because, and here's the thing, they can kill you. Like, if people want to try to kill you, they will kill you. One dude literally tried to kill someone in Fern's group. Like, it's brutal, and I think if they continue to go on, because this is just day one, this arc very well could last the entire rest of this anime season. And honestly, if they keep up this level of creativity, they keep it realistic for their world, I don't see how we don't say this is the best magic exam in anime, or at least in a top list of some sort. Full live reaction episode 19, though, is available on my Patreon. If you'd like to see my full uncut thoughts on today's episode, it's over there if you're interested. Now, I'm loving that Frieren greatness. I've been saying it ever since it pretty much started up with its first 4 episodes that dropped, that this was special, and I still firmly believe that this is a top 10 anime for me. No questions asked. I think my favorite thing about this episode is how they explore the magic and how they use that and incorporate it with the creatures in the world. It's not simply just, okay, here's a really cool looking bird that's fast, or here's a big cool looking bird that kills people. There's 2 very different ways they use both of those creatures. Let's talk about the one that lays traps first. So there's this group that's walking through this forest that I was convinced trees were gonna come alive and start hitting fools. And there's like 2, 3, 4 bodies just strung up in trees. Human nature is naturally going to say, okay, can we just leave bodies there? No, like, you know, it's kind of a shitty thing to do. Now, yeah, there's going to be people saying, well, we're in the middle of an exam, they'll get to it later. But the thing about this is that these creatures, they pretty much pry on human weakness. They keep this element of mana around them so that when someone touches them or interacts with them, that's their next prey, that's their next target, and the cycle will just keep continuing. And very clearly, that's what happened to the group that got slaughtered and is now hung up in the trees. A lot of shows don't go that route. They just say, here's a cool looking griffin-like creature, or here's a big bird, and yeah, it's gonna rip us apart. But they actually went and gave it more interesting, like we could see how they hunt now with such a simple little spoken line and some visual details. And the birds that they're trying to catch, you can't use magic against them. They're fast as hell. You can't get like more than a few centimeters away from them before they sprint away. Yeah, they need water, but I love the fact that the way they went about not only pushing back against the grooves, which yes, puts a lot of targets on their back, but how they push the birds to one location. So at the start of this whole exam, or this test, right, what the people who made this whole exam did was that they pretty much got rid of all the water except the big ass lake, because the birds need to drink, so it gives it a way that there's a chance to find the birds, because if there wasn't, it probably would be too random. So what they end up doing, Frieren's group, is they freeze the entire lake, meaning, well, there's now no more water, right? The lake's frozen, there's this big pool of mana because they're scared of mana, right? If there's a lot of mana going on, they're not going to be touching it. So you can burn that lake all you want and free it from the ice. Those birds are done with that. And the idea that all the little puddles throughout the forest, they have the smallest trace of it that the normal human eye is not going to see, but the birds will, and it forces them to the one location that Frieren's at, where she basically suppresses her mana and acts as a tree. And we get to see a couple of creatures walk by, and honestly, the idea that the bird just lands on her shoulder because she suppressed it so well, and she can just use that same spell that she used in last week's episode against the big boy, this is so cool because it's not like they just go the typical, okay, we need to be faster than the bird, or oh, we just need to have a bigger and more extravagant spell. She already had that. So instead, they had to use what they had available. Okay, what's your ability? You can freeze things. What's your ability? You can manipulate water, or you can do this, you can do that, right? The idea of just going extravagant, releasing so much mana and forcing your prey to the location it needs to be, as other people are being smart about it. Like, okay, well, the lake's screwed, so let's just steal the bird from the group that's clearly screwing everyone else up. It's very easy to see how any of these groups could succeed because they have talent and preparation. Now, the group that's going up against Fern's group isn't interesting because apparently the girl is the strongest out of the group, even though she's trying to say the guy is. And Fern's an interesting character because she's an incredibly quick spellcaster. If we rewind 8 episodes, I forget how long, but when she killed that one dude who basically was like, oh, I don't have to worry about her, and her spell casting was so rapid, you know, she's someone who's built different in that way. And the thing about Frieren that's really fascinating is Frieren probably is the strongest mage, potentially in the world, like in terms of pure magic capabilities. There might be no one more powerful, but she's not invincible. And what I mean is that there's mages and spellcasters and people out there that might be faster than her, that might have better techniques than her, but in terms of pure magical capabilities, probably no one's going to surpass Frieren. Fern probably will surpass Frieren in just pure technique and skill, because she is incredibly quick drawn. She could probably, maybe a few years, 10 years, something like that, she'll probably be able to outclass Frieren just because of pure technique, because she's being taught very well, but she's a natural born prodigy as well. So it's interesting how you have this conversation like, you know, if you're using these basic spells, you're not even going to have a chance at survival, and the best shade ever is thrown at her. Well, my teacher pretty much said that any human mage in this world can be beat with the most basic pitch spells, so I'm just gonna follow my teacher's way of teaching. I'm kind of interested though, because we're in a world with so much variety with its spellcasting. I'm curious if we would ever touch upon necromancy, because necromancy is my personal favorite spellcasting. I always use it in video games when given the option. Of course, it's pretty taboo 99% of the time. Sometimes it's used in an interesting way and it's actually not as bad as it seems. But I'd be interested to see if we're ever going to touch upon that, because it'd be interesting to see what a character like that would look like. I mean, one of the characters that is in Fern's party has no problem killing, and honestly, half the characters in this entire exam have no problem killing. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to develop. But I mean, if this is just the first part of trying to select who could be, you know, a first class rank, it's just, there's so much potential. And even if this was all we got, it's so much better than 90% of what you'll see for a magical exam. It's usually like collect something, and the collecting isn't really that intense. Like, you might fight something, but it's just so much more interesting with what Frieren delivered. Now, of course, those are my feelings. I'd love to know what everyone thought, because I thought this was another banger of an episode. I don't think Frieren's missed yet, but this was an extra special episode to me. But let me know how you're feeling down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring the bell so you can get notified when I upload more. And like I mentioned, we had that full live reaction over on my Patreon, and while you're over there, you also get a video shout out. All right, so today we have K-Talk, Brett Itzka, Sarnik, and Destiny Richards. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.